I've been reading JKrishnamurthy for a long time, and some of his books have really had a profound impact. And sometimes when we go back to books, they reveal something different every time we approach them after a gap of some time. It's because our perceptions, our intelligence, our core understanding of the self has graduated to the next level. And I was in fact discussing this very concept with a friend of mine yesterday over the phone, that it's great to reread books after a decade's gap because you've transcended some barriers, you have overcome certain perplexing questions, and you've found answers to them through experiential learning in life. And when you go back to these books, the profundity that they offer, it's just many folds more than when you first read it. And their preciousness also starts to increase in your understanding, in your perspective view. The one I'm reading right now, and it was a lazy Saturday morning, and we are going through elections, and since everybody was out there voting and there was time, I sat at a cafe and leisurely read these pages, and I just came upon the thought that how about doing a podcast based on this? And the book is, what are you doing with your life? And this is one of the core questions that I've been addressing of late, and I've been struggling with of late. So I think it spoke to me at many different levels, and I just hope that this Penguin published book, which has over 4 million copies of this book, has been sold worldwide. In fact, all Krishnamurthy books have been sold worldwide. And I thought, how about reading this book? And how about sharing some nuggets out of this? The one that opened up today was chapter 2 at random. Of course, there's a lot on the pages of chapter 1, but the one that opened up in front of me says, what do you want? And the first thought or essay or collection of his thoughts is about security, happiness, and pleasure. And it immediately spoke to me that these are the core things that we are all looking for. We're looking for security, happiness, and pleasure. And Jay says, what is it that most of us are seeking? What is it that each one of us wants? Especially in this restless world where everybody is trying to find some kind of peace, some kind of happiness, a refuge. Surely it is important to find out, isn't it? What it is that we are trying to seek, what it is that we are trying to discover. Probably most of us are seeking some kind of happiness, some kind of peace. In a world that is ridden with turmoil, wars, contention, strife, we want a refuge where there can be some peace. I think that is what most of us want. And I paused at this thought and I reflected back. I said, look at us, deep inside our minds, we're constantly striving for a place of comfort, peace, security, and happiness. And we want that stable situation in a very restless world where countries are going to war, where children are being killed, where there's starvation, there's a lot of grief and uncertainty at the moment, and there seems to be a lot of dark forces around us that are overwhelming the good in most people. And we are at times amused to see that there is a sense of numbness about all the light. But then, as I reflect on this, I also reflect on the fact that every black hole today has been discovered to be the womb of creation. It's not what sucks every passing ray of light and bends it and takes it in and adds on to its already immeasurable density, that little spoonful of tons and tons and millions of tons of weight. Yet that black hole is from where the universe originates, where new stars are created. It is that compressed darkness from where light emerges. And since that is the core blueprint of the universe, I think everything is being created from there. And you and I, other worlds, other solar systems, other universes, everything is being created in the wombs of those black holes. So if we are moving into a dark era where there's a lot of darkness, there's a lot of lack of light that we notice around us, I think it is the advent of something new, because the darkness is the harbinger of light, and we must understand it. So, in a chaotic world where you and I are constantly restless and seeking something where we'll find peace, we'll find harmony, we'll find a very stable, secure environment, I think it's not possible, because what is being reflected outside is what is exactly happening inside of us. And that's what Jay says. He says, we go from one leader to another, from one religious organization to another, from one teacher to another. Now, is it that we are seeking happiness, or is it that we are seeking gratification of some kind from which we hope to derive happiness? There is a difference between happiness and gratification. And I again paused here. Isn't it so profound and true that between gratification and happiness, there is a huge gap? And Jay says, can you seek happiness? Perhaps you can find gratification, but surely you cannot find happiness. Happiness is derivative. It is a byproduct of something else. So, for instance, you want a particular car, you want a particular home, you want a particular promotion, you want a set of clothes, you want a holiday experience, and once you've had it, there is that temporal feeling of gratification, and it results in what Jay says as the byproduct, happiness, right? So he further writes, so before we give our minds and hearts to something which demands a great deal of earnestness, attention, thought, care, we must find out, must we not, what is it that we are seeking? Whether it is happiness or gratification, I'm afraid most of us are seeking gratification. We want to be gratified. We want to find a sense of fullness at the end of our search. After all, if one is seeking peace, one can find it easily. One can devote oneself blindly to some kind of cause, to an idea, and take shelter there. I paused again. A lot of people are so possessed, they are so in sync with a particular idea. They immerse themselves, say, in work or the pursuit of a political high position or anything else which they define as a core ambition, and they go after it full force. Jay describes it as taking shelter. Surely that does not solve the problem. Yes, most of those people at the pinnacle of success, of being driven and ambitious and having achieved the top spot in the world in their respective fields, can be restless and impatient and inwardly empty. So, mere isolation in an enclosing idea is not a release from conflict. That conflict is irking us deep inside. It's causing a lot of disturbance within. So we must find, must we not, what it is inwardly as well as outwardly that each one of us wants. If you're clear on that matter, then we don't have to go anywhere, to any teacher, to any church, to any organization. Therefore, our difficulty is to be clear in ourselves regarding our intention. Is it not? Are we clear about this, he asks, and I again paused and thought about this. How important it is in every interaction in life to be very clear what our intention is, what the other person's intention is. We are constantly, desperately trying to read what the true intention behind a particular interaction is. Once we are clear that the intentions are good, then we go ahead full steam. And same goes for the core pursuit of life. If our intention is clear to us, what are we seeking in a particular situation? I think all of the world's problems will be healed once the intentions are clear, noble, and they are of the greater good. With small me, selfish intentions, we are actually driving the world's entire progress and traffic into a direction of self-destruction. That sadly is the situation. Now, Jay says, can we be clear? And does this clarity come through searching, through trying to find out what others say, from the highest teacher to the ordinary preacher in a church around the corner? Have you got to go to somebody to find out? Yet that is what we are doing, is it not? We read innumerable books, we attend many meetings and discuss. We join various organizations, trying thereby to find a remedy to the conflict, to the miseries of our lives. Or, if we don't do all that, we think we have found. That is, we say that a particular organization, a particular teacher, a particular book satisfies us. We have found everything we want in that, and we remain in that, crystallized and enclosed. And that's where dogma comes into the picture, is what I think. And when we close our eyes and ears to everything else that is being thought of and done in this world, and we just toe a particular line, thinking and believing that that is what is correct, we are moving towards radicalism, and that's another form of violence, that's another form of insecure and very narrow thinking. And then Jay says, do we not seek through all this confusion something permanent, something lasting, something which we call real, God, truth, what you like? The name doesn't matter. The word is not the thing, surely. So don't let us be caught in words. Leave that to the professional lecturers. There is a search for something permanent, is there not? In most of us. Something we can cling to, something which will give us assurance, a hope, a lasting enthusiasm, a lasting certainty, because in ourselves we are so uncertain. We do not know ourselves. We know a lot about facts, what the books have said, what we know about ourselves. We don't. We do not have a direct experience of who we are. And what is it that we call permanent? What is it that we are seeking, which will or which we hope will give us permanency? Are we not seeking lasting happiness, lasting gratification, lasting certainty? We want something that will endure everlastingly, which will gratify us if we strip ourselves of all the words and phrases and actually look at it. This is what we want. We want permanent pleasure. Now, I read this piece and I just kept thinking about permanency. What is it? In a very volatile, liquid, flowing sense of existence where relationships are dynamic, 8 billion people have different intentions and perceptions and worldviews. They're all wearing different tinted glasses to see the world through. We are all dwelling in this world, wanting to bend the entire universe to our satisfaction. We want things to be our way. We want a happy, comfortable, permanently lasting, secure situation that should not change. And then very quickly the next morning, we get bored with the status quo and we want things to change. So basically, the unrest and the struggle and the desire for something that needs to be filled up, that little void is within us. Now that void can become very volatile as well. It itself starts to act like a jumping crazy ball in the emptiness of our being, because it's always seeking something else. The eyes are always searching something else. The next engagement, the next experience, the next entertainment, the next partner, the next monetary gain, the next financial reward, the next milestone. And we don't realize that the joy of life is right there in the movement of things, in the movement that we are experiencing right now. And every breath that we draw, every time we exhale, there's just pure joy. And the learning comes from within. Now, reading Krishnamurthy is one aspect, but the key aspect is that the questions that he's asking. What are you seeking? Who are you? Where are you from? And is it only joy and pleasure and one activity to the next? You just want to be a volatile, jumping, very excited and unsatisfied with one thing and then the next? Are you a series of dissatisfactions? Is that what our life is going to add up to? It's a very beautiful question that he's posed. And all of us need to just introspect and go into some kind of a silence and ask ourselves what this question actually means. And I love it when in the next part he says, happiness cannot be pursued. And Jay says, what do you mean by happiness? Some will say happiness consists of getting what you want. You want a car and you get it and you're happy. You want a piece of clothing. You want to go to Europe and you're happy. Now, I want to be a great politician, and if I get it, I'm happy. If I cannot get it, I'm very unhappy. So, what you call happiness is getting what you want, achievement or success, becoming noble, getting anything that you want. As long as you want something and you can get it, you feel perfectly happy, you are not frustrated. But if you cannot get what you want, then unhappiness begins. All of us are concerned with this. Not only the rich and the poor, it's got nothing to do with that, right? The rich and the poor all want to get something for themselves, for their family, for society. And if they are prevented, stopped, they will be unhappy. We're not saying that the poor should not have what they want. That is not the core problem. We are trying to find out what is happiness, whether happiness is something of which you are conscious. The moment you're conscious that you're happy, that you have much, is that happiness? The moment you're conscious that you are happy, it is not happiness, is it? So you cannot go after happiness. The moment you're conscious that you are humble, you're not humble. So happiness is not a thing to be pursued, it comes. It's a natural inflowing thing, I believe. So Jay says, but if you seek it, it will evade you. And that's the most beautiful thing about happiness. If you watch the birds sing in the morning without a cause or sense of purpose, or that orchestra is not being played to impress you, it's not a performance-oriented singing, it's just pure joy of living. If you hear the call of the animals in the jungle, those calls are for love, for mating, for just expressing gratitude for being alive. That is authentic happiness. It has no tag. It has no sense of possessiveness. And that's the kind of happiness that is very pure. And that spontaneous happiness is actually joy at its core. And I personally feel that that sort of happiness is in children. That is why their company is so infectiously beautiful and important. And when we are with these uncorrupted, still connected with the divine source children, their spontaneity, their expression of joy at the smallest of things is bemusing. It's enlightening. It's just what we need as adults. And I'm going to read further later when Jay goes on to describe that how when we attach names and values and everything to things and we want to possess them, they just immediately lose their charm. So happiness and joy, they are out of the window the moment you want to possess something. Possessing a tree, acres of land, oceanfront villas, great, but possessing them has got nothing to do with happiness. Happiness is such a raw, pure feeling which can come up anytime, anywhere, out of so many things that we don't comprehend and anticipate, that truly there is no cost to joy and happiness. And once we become aware of that fact, this whole pursuit of material things becomes very differently oriented. I'm not saying that it should disappear. Then needs, necessities to cover yourself, to feed yourself, become secondary. And you're not laying all the importance, which is not to be attached to these things. You truly shift back into where actual joy and happiness lies, which is what children teach us all day long. And I have constantly been enthralled by this idea. I definitely like to read more because this chapter called What You Want has so much. Now, Jay further writes, pleasure, enjoyment turns into dependency and fear of loss. Think about it deeply. He says we do not really enjoy anything. We look at it, we are superficially amused or excited by it, we have a sensation which we call joy. But enjoyment is something far deeper, which must be understood and gone into. And I think every time Jay points out in a direction where we need to go within, we need to look more into our inside where the true joy and happiness lies. The fingers, the arrows are always pointing in the inward direction and nothing is on the outside. Jay says, when we are young, we enjoy and take delight in things, in games, in clothes, in reading a book, in writing a poem, in painting a picture, or in pushing each other about. But as we grow older, although we still want to enjoy things, the best has gone out of us. We prefer other kinds of sensations, passion, lust, power, position. Imagine how your priorities have changed over the years. The simple joys of life have totally evaporated from your list of wants, and your bucket list is now full of passion, lust, power, position, and you want to take use of any tactics, divisive, manipulative, anything possible. This desperate urge which the society that we have created has put into us to go after and do these things. And then Jay writes, as we grow older, the things of life lose their meaning. Our minds become dull, insensitive, and so we try to enjoy. We try to force ourselves to look at pictures, to look at a tree, to look at little children playing. We read some sacred book or the other and try to find its meaning, its depth, its significance. But it is all an effort, a travail, something to struggle with. Now, think about how many things in life you're struggling with at this point in time and how things come so effortlessly easy to young children. It's not that their capacity for learning is tremendous and they're flexible, their minds are open, the doors and windows are open. We are so constricted and so closed in our outlooks and perspectives that we don't want to open up. And Jay says, I think it is very important to understand this thing called joy, the enjoyment of things. When you see something very beautiful, you want to possess it. You want to hold on to it. You want to call it your own. It is my tree, my bird, my house, my husband, my wife. We want to hold it, and in that very process of holding, the thing that you once enjoyed is gone. Because in the very holding, there is dependence, there is fear, there is exclusion, and so the thing that gave joy, the sense of inward beauty, is lost. Because now, life becomes enclosed. To know real joy, one must go much deeper. And he's again pointing the finger to go inside. And what I really enjoyed is the next passage. Because here when he says that the moment we attach wills, certificates of possession, rights of ownership to anything in life, any relationship, even the marital contract, it's a sense of exercising a sense of control over the other thing, person, or a material sort of stamp where you think you own it. And that's when the entire joy of that thing goes away, because in this fleeting life, there is no sense of ownership. There's only sharing. And you're here in this guest house sharing a resource for a little while and you're going to move on. It's like an Airbnb. It's like a holiday. It's just that it's not a few days and a few weeks. It's an extended a few year-long holiday on this planet where you're traveling around the sun on a little rock at a certain pace, and on this spacecraft with the spacesuit of your body, you just have a nice journey that's happening at this moment, but pretty temporal. And now, let me go back to what Jay says. He says, joy is the absence of me that wants. We may move from one refinement to another, from one subtlety to another, from one enjoyment to another, but at the center of it all, there is the me. Now, I've been battling with this question personally, that this one little small me, that constantly comes in to experience things with a sense of entitlement. Oh, move aside, let me enjoy this. Move aside, let me express my views on this. Excuse me, can I get some way and room to put forward my perspective, my point of view, my joy, my priorities, the way I like things? Now the me, Jay says, that is enjoying, that wants more happiness, the me that searches, looks for, longs for happiness, the me that struggles, the me that becomes more and more refined, but never likes to come to an end. It is only when the me in all its subtle forms comes to an end that there is a state of bliss which cannot be sought after, an ecstasy, a real joy without pain, without corruption. Now, in all our joy, all our happiness is corruption, because behind it there is pain, behind it there is fear. The fear is of the diminishing dissolution of the me. The pain is that one day this is going to cease. The circus is going to be over. The me can no longer indulge in physical pleasures, in mental battles, in whatever pleases the small me. Going through a cancer episode a few months ago, I really experienced it up close and personal when the first thought that hit me was that suddenly this me identity is going to be no more. It might just be right here in this position being served a 15-day, 30-day, 6-month, 1 year, 2 years notice, and it's going to be over. And the biggest sadness that engulfs a person at that point in time is to realize that it is also fleeting and it can be over in a blink. And yet we are wanting to live with a sense of permanency and a sense of importance, which is very difficult to put to an end or a rest or to sleep. And Jay writes, when the mind goes beyond the thought of the me, the experiencer, the observer, the thinker, then there is a possibility of happiness which is incorruptible. So when I personally felt this, it was extremely elevating. I mean, it's like your frequency spirals into ecstatic joy because you know you're the indestructible observer just sitting back there and watching this charade of a life. And sometimes at a party I get this feeling when everything around me is just happening and all I'm doing is watching the charade. And there, ladies and gentlemen, is true happiness, because that happiness cannot be taken away, because usually Jay writes, the happiness cannot be made permanent in the sense in which we use the word. But our mind is seeking permanent happiness, something that'll last, that'll continue. Now the taste of the pizza, the game, the dance, the glass of wine, the holiday experience, the intercourse, nothing is permanent. Everything is fleeting. And that joy is very ephemeral. It's going to go away. And Jay says, but when the mind is free from the me, there is a happiness from moment to moment which comes without your seeking, in which there is no gathering, no storing up, no putting by of happiness. It is not something which you can hold on to. So the moment you realize and understand that if you close the fist, you cannot hold water, you need to have your palm open. And that openness is how life is, how happiness is. It will never stay. It is so liquid, so flowing at this point in time and in all of life. And then Jay goes on to write, we want security. There's a desire for security, and one can understand this desire to be secure when you meet a wild animal, a snake, or you watch when you cross the road. But there is no other form of security other than this instantaneous security that you need of imminent danger. And Jay says, really, if you look at it, there is no other form. You would like to have security with your wife, children, neighbor, your relations. If you have relations, but you don't have it. You may have your mother, you may have your father, but you're not related. You are completely isolated. And he says, we'll go into that. There is no security, psychological security or at any time, at any level, with anybody. This is the most difficult thing to realize. Now imagine, a lot of scriptures and a lot of people have been telling us that we've come alone, we'll go alone, we are here enduring this life all alone. Your pain is very personal, isn't it? Your suffering, your heartbreak, your disappointment at losing a job, everything is very personal. Your parents, your family, they can share. Your friends, they can participate in your grief, but they cannot partake. And you cannot partake. And that is how grief is. That's how it is. Because there is no psychological security that your parents, your friends, your family, or anything is going to be there forever. There is no psychological security, Jay says, with another, because he is a human being and so are you. He's free and so are you. But we want security in our relationships through marriage, through vows. You know the tricks we play upon ourselves and upon others? This is an obvious fact. It does not need great emphasis. So one has to realize the phase of insecurity. We never come into contact with this insecurity. We are afraid of being completely insecure, which is a very profound statement that Jay gives. It requires a great deal of intelligence to understand that insecurity. When one feels completely insecure, one runs away. Or not finding security in anything, one becomes unbalanced, ready to commit suicide, to go to a mental hospital, or one becomes most devout religious person, which are all one and the same forms of imbalance. Same forms of imbalance, says Jay, to realize, not intellectually, not verbally, not as determined, willed attitude, the fact that there is no security requires an extraordinarily simple, clear, harmonious living. Now, aren't we all seeking that balance, that harmony, that rhythm? We're drawn towards music for this very reason, because we need to find that sense of rhythm and balance in music, in life, in our heartbeat, in our breathing. And we need to orient towards that, because those are the core synchronous frequencies that have been given to us that we need to keep tuning back into when we want to find peace. So imagine when there is a situation of insecurity, upheaval, and restlessness, or stress, or great grief and anxiety, we shift back to our breathing, because that's where the harmony is. That's where the true harmonic of life is, dancing and playing. And Jay has put it so eloquently that the whole seeking of security is a falsehood. We are in an insecure world. What we need is a pure, beautiful, rhythmic sense of knowing that the divine is within us. And the more we keep asking questions within, the more we deeply dive within ourselves, spend more time in silence, in acknowledging and knowing ourselves, the smoother, the better, the more joyful, the more satisfied our lives become. And the whole desire for pleasure and for seeking outward excitements goes away. You definitely are here to enjoy, in this flesh and bone coat, an existence, a life, experiential learning. But then apart from this, there's more inner work to do than the outer work. Our roots are far more deep inside of us, and they lead right up to the divine network, where 95% of our subconscious is connected, and the 5% outwardly focused conscious mind is dancing on the surface waves, which are very restless, the beta waves. But deep inside, the deltas, the thetas, the delta theta waves are where our true peace, our tranquility, our calmness is. And once we know the deep sea waves within us, and we start to get in sync with them, it's a very different existence altogether. It brings a very radiant look, a very calm smile, and the very countenance of ours changes. And we are all aspiring to go there. And as one of my favorite quotes says, as in Ram Dass put that quote in the world, and he says, we're all walking each other home. This is a very long drawn podcast episode that I've just put in one breath without editing. The whole idea was to pour out how keen, how earnest, how full of desire am I to walk home with you, and how excited am I to do this again and again. So ponder over the question, what are you doing with your life? Thank you.